As the champagne flowed, Tyler grabbed the microphone and began his wedding toast with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. What started as thanks quickly turned into cruel jokes about his bride's weight and the ultimatum he'd given her before agreeing to marry. The tall stranger who had slipped into the back of the reception stepped forward. The elegant banquet hall sparkled with twinkling lights as guests celebrated what appeared to be a perfect wedding day. Sarah and Tyler had finally tied the knot after 3 years of dating. Sarah's face glowed with happiness as she greeted guests in her stunning wedding dress, a design that flattered her figure perfectly and showcased her radiant smile. Sarah moved through the crowd gracefully, accepting compliments on her dress and the ceremony. She'd worked hard to look her best, spending hours at fittings and carefully selecting every detail. The admiring glances confirmed her efforts had paid off, and she basked in the attention on her special day. Near the bar, Tyler stood surrounded by his friends, drinking and enjoying being the center of attention. Sarah noticed her new husband enjoying himself as she chatted with elderly relatives who had traveled to attend their wedding. As the evening progressed, the wedding planner tapped her glass to signal the next part of the reception. She announced it was time for the speeches, and guests took their seats at decorated tables. Sarah's father had already delivered a touching toast that brought tears to many eyes. Now it was Tyler's turn to address their friends and family. He made his way to the microphone, smiling broadly at the gathered guests. When he began speaking, his words were warm and charming. He thanked everyone for making the journey to be with them, and spoke of how fortunate he felt to have found Sarah. His voice carried throughout the hall as he described their first meeting, and the guests smiled appreciatively, drawn in by his seemingly heartfelt words. Tyler continued by reminiscing about their relationship journey. He talked about all the beautiful moments they've shared. The crowd nodded along, enjoying these personal glimpses. Sarah smiled from her seat, touched by his recollections. Then, almost imperceptibly at first, Tyler's speech took an unexpected turn. He began talking about Sarah's appearance, describing how she had transformed over the past year. At first, it seemed like he was complimenting her dedication, but his tone gradually shifted. The room grew quieter as Tyler revealed, with strange pride, that he had given Sarah an ultimatum: lose weight or there would be no wedding at all. The atmosphere in the room changed with shocking speed. Sarah's bridesmaids exchanged alarmed glances across the table. Her mother's smile faded into a look of horror. Most guests stared at their plates, unsure where to look as Tyler continued his increasingly inappropriate revelations. Tyler seemed completely unaware of the changing mood surrounding him. He laughed as he detailed Sarah's struggles with dieting and exercise regimens. He pulled out his phone and, to the shock of everyone present, began showing before pictures of Sarah to nearby guests, zooming in and commenting on specific areas of her body that had changed over the months. He even mentioned, with a chuckle that echoed in the now silent room, that he preferred Sarah to drive when they traveled because he was scared airlines might charge her for 2 seats due to her previous size. This comment elicited painful, awkward silence from the stunned guests, but Tyler pressed on, oblivious to the damage he was causing. Sarah sat frozen at the head table, her earlier joy completely vanished, replaced with stunned silence. Tears formed in her eyes as the perfect day crumbled around her. Her hands trembled visibly in her lap as she listened to Tyler continue his humiliating speech, each word cutting deeper than the last. What no one in the reception hall realized was that someone had slipped quietly into the back of the venue just as Tyler's speech began. A tall, well-dressed figure stood at the back, partially hidden by a decorative column, listening with increasing tension to every word that fell from the groom's mouth. The room had grown so quiet you could hear the soft clinking of ice in water glasses. Most guests shifted awkwardly in their seats, some exchanging whispers of disbelief. The wedding planner hovered nearby, clearly uncertain whether to intervene in what had become an increasingly distressing situation. The mysterious figure at the back of the room began moving purposefully forward through the crowd. His determined approach created a ripple effect as guests noticed him and turned to look. Whispers spread quickly through the tables, but Tyler, still engrossed in his stories about Sarah's body, failed to notice the approaching man or the changing atmosphere in the room. Only when the room fell completely silent did Tyler finally look up, confused by the sudden change. As he turned around to see what had captured everyone's attention, a fist connected squarely with his jaw, sending him sprawling backward to the floor. Gasps and cries erupted throughout the hall as the punch landed. Tyler's friends stared in shock and horror, some jumping up and rushing to help their fallen friend. Sarah immediately recognized the tall figure standing over her fallen groom. It was Michael, her college boyfriend from years ago. Her eyes widened in shock and disbelief at his sudden appearance. She instinctively rose from her seat, rushing toward the scene unfolding before the stunned guests. With surprising calm, she positioned herself between Michael and Tyler, her hands raised to prevent any further violence, though her eyes revealed a storm of conflicting emotions. Sarah asked Michael in a hushed voice why he came and what he was doing. Michael looked at Sarah, his expression softening visibly for a moment before he turned to address the shocked crowd. His voice carried clearly through the silent hall as he explained that he had the privilege of loving Sarah when the world taught her she was unlovable. He spoke with conviction, his voice steady though filled with unmistakable emotion as he described Sarah's true beauty. Not her physical appearance, but her kindness, her brilliance, and her beautiful heart. Michael stated firmly that a real man doesn't demand his partner change her body to be worthy of his love. A real man cherishes her exactly as she is. Tyler stood speechless, the microphone hanging limply at his side. His friends had stopped laughing entirely, some looking away uncomfortably, suddenly less eager to be associated with him. The beautiful wedding was now irreparably damaged, the celebratory atmosphere completely dissolved. Michael turned to address Sarah directly, their eyes meeting across the small space between them for the first time in years. Something powerful and unspoken passed between them. Recognition, understanding, and a shared history that suddenly felt very present once again. With genuine emotion in his voice, Michael told Sarah that she had taught him what true beauty is. He said she deserved someone who saw that beauty every single day of her life. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes, not tears of humiliation like before, but tears of recognition, of remembering her own value and strength. The wedding guests watched in stunned silence as she slowly stepped back from Michael and Tyler. With deliberate movements, she removed her wedding ring and placed it on the table. The soft sound of metal against wood echoed through the hall as she stated, her voice clear and steady, that she deserved better than this all along. She walked toward the door, each step more confident than the last. There was something more powerful about her demeanor, the reclaiming of her dignity and self-worth. Michael ran towards her. As they reached the door together, Michael draped his jacket gently around her shoulders in a simple gesture of protection and respect. The door closed behind them with a final, resolute thud, leaving Tyler standing alone at the center of his ruined wedding. In the uncomfortable silence that followed, guests began to leave quietly. The elaborate wedding cake remained uncut. Beautiful flowers adorned now empty tables, and half-filled champagne glasses stood abandoned across the hall. And you, would you have had the courage to walk away like Sarah did? Or would you have stayed, hoping things would change?